Hello, my name is Dr. Emilie Lucchesi, and I am a visiting professor of communication here at Elmhurst University. And in this lecture, I am going to describe how to use video lectures, such as this one, to connect with differently abled students in your classroom. So first, we'll begin by considering what it's like to be a differently abled student in a traditional classroom setting. And then we will consider how a video lecture, such as this one, can help students with a variety of distinct needs. We will then conclude with just a brief consideration as to how these videos can be created. So I am a person with hearing impairment. You might not be able to tell, but I'm actually wearing these right now to help me with a microphone and to help pick up my very soft voice because I live in a soft world. I have two types of hearing impairment, and both have been quite difficult for me to be in a traditional classroom setting. My first type of hearing impairment is something called auditory processing disorder. And so what this is that I hear everything at the same level. So that when a professor is speaking at the front of the room and I'm a student trying to take notes, my brain is not going to do a very good job of filtering out the professor's voice as being more important than the student behind me who is digging into their backpack to pull out a bag of chips, open it, and begin chomping. I'll hear that all at the same level. And very often my brain will prioritize around the wrong sound so that I'm listening to the bag of chips and not the professor. So that is one type of hearing impairment that I have. And then the other type is that I have hearing loss in both ears, one ear being stronger than the other. And so what this probably means is, if I were to say, what would it be like for you to try to experience my hearing impairment, I would say that it would be the equivalent of if you had earbuds like these in your ears and you turned them off the music and you were trying to talk to someone. It's a bit probably plugged up, but it's what I know and what I've always experienced. I was born in the late 1970s, which meant I went to school and college before the end of the 1990s. And so technology was not something that was used in my college experience. I found that if I sat in the front row, I could write down everything the professor said, but then I would have no sense of what was said. And so I would have to go back and review the lecture material and receive it for the first time. So very often for students like myself, having some sort of challenge, such as not being able to hear in a classroom setting, it means a lot more work. It means that if you have a student who has ADHD or hearing issues, visual processing, they likely have to do twice the amount of work to keep up with other students. So it's certainly a challenge, but it's one that I think that as professors, we can mitigate through videos such as these. So let's now think here in part 2 about how video lectures, such as this one, can be used to connect with differently abled students. So I'll tell you how I've begun using video lectures. The pandemic required me to deliver asynchronous material. Because when the pandemic first hit, I had students living in 6 different time zones, and there's no way I could have everybody get together on a Zoom and deliver lecture material. So I had to create a video for students to watch in their own time. And at that point, I realized that for students like myself, this is a way to greatly enhance education. So what I do now each week is I post on Blackboard any readings or viewing materials I want students to view prior to watching the video lecture. After watching the video lecture, they might have an additional reading or a discussion item that they're responsible for. When we meet either in person or virtually for our regular class time, then we can do discussions, or because I teach a lot of writing classes, journalism and PR, we can do workshopping, writing activity, those hands-on practices that they need in order to learn the skill. And so what's interesting, and this is faculty secret, right? This goes no further than us. You can get through so much more material when you do it this way. It's wonderful because you're having them watch the lecture in their own time, and then when you meet together, you're applying the material. It's really great. Don't tell them. I don't think they're fully aware. So, secret. So when I create these videos and I post them to Blackboard, I think there's many benefits for students who are differently abled. So first, I'd like to begin with what I think this does to help hearing impaired students. With having a video lecture, the captions are so helpful. Students can also wear earbuds such as this so that they're putting the professor's voice right into their ears. And they can also be in a quiet environment where they're not hearing that bag of chips, right? And so that I think is a great benefit. It also, in addition to reducing distractions, it also allows the student to get to know your voice and to rely on captions if needed. I know for me, I struggle to understand someone if they have a beard, a goatee. That's going to be a lot harder for me to be able to read their lips. And when you structure a video just the head and shoulders like this, hearing impaired students can see your lips a lot easier. If you have an accent they're not familiar with, then you can also rely on captions. I know for me, I don't understand British accents on screen. And so when you have captions, that is just greatly helpful. For students who have ADHD and ADD, what this does is it provides pause points. If you'll notice, I've been putting up captions to highlight important ideas, but I've also segmented this lecture. And the reason I did that is not just to be organized, which is great, but to give intentionally pause points for students who are reaching the end of their ability to focus without distraction. So I think that by doing these lectures, you allow students, rather than being in the classroom and getting an hour of material at once, they can actually sit and go through, and maybe if they can only do 6 minutes at a time, maybe if they can only do 10, they have a pause point and they can come back when they're able to focus. For students with dyslexia and visual processing disorders, we very often see those students come to our classroom ready to record. And what I love about posting a lecture on Blackboard and having it up all semester long is that students can revisit it. And they no longer have to be responsible for recording the video or recording the lecture, transcribing it. They have it, they can return to it. They always have the material available to them. And I think that's really valuable. And I also I want to mention that when you are differently abled in a traditional classroom setting, or even just in life, there will always be some point in which someone communicates to you that it is your fault. And then when you come to the classroom and you have to take these extra steps like recording, or asking the professor to wear a microphone that goes into your earbuds, it somehow comes across as an inconvenience or a punishment. It's unique to you. And I think most faculty are very accommodating and kind towards students. We love to teach, that's why we're here. But students are receiving this outside your classroom, and that's a challenge you have to deal with. I remember when I was getting my PhD, I was at UIC, and I took the blue line in, and I was getting off, and as you know, that the blue line, when you get off at the UIC Racine stop, it's above the highway, above the Eisenhower. And as I got off, a man asked me for directions, and I couldn't hear him. You know, the trains were rumbling, there's traffic beneath you on the Ike, and I couldn't hear him, and I kept asking him, you know, to repeat himself and you know, pointing to my ear. And then finally he looks at me and he says, "You're stupid." And he walked away. And then a year later, I was at a grocery store, and I was having trouble hearing someone over the Jolly case. And so I said to them, you know, "I'm hearing impaired." And the woman just walked away, like, "I'm not dealing with this." Okay, well, you kind of hurt my feelings, right? So please keep in mind that students are receiving this type of negative feedback outside your classroom. And when they come into the classroom and they have to be different again, it's not a good feeling. And when we can reduce those differences just by changing our technology, I think it's greatly beneficial. I also would like to point out that for students who have epilepsy, when you create these videos, they're able to control how they view it, their lighting situation, and you can provide any type of warning for any type of flashing or anything that might trigger. Other benefits to doing a video lecture such as this one, you can incorporate photographs such as this one. This is a cat having a birthday. And it might seem silly, and it's not actually related to what we're talking about, and I do recommend using photographs that are related to what you're talking about. But I'd like you to think in the next few days, when you remember this lecture, that you're going to notice this little kitty having a birthday. And that is because the research shows, scholarship shows, that people retain images more than text, and that images remain in a long-term memory. And it's a great way for students who are visual learners to have the experience of not just watching a video lecture, but to also have images that will compound the material, and it will drive the point home so that they're able to retain it better. Another benefit is that it allows international students to pause or look up references or expressions. This is particularly helpful if you are turning on the caption and they realize that you have used a colloquial phrase they're not familiar with. They can pause, go to Google, return, and be part of that conversation. They know what you're talking about. They're included. Lastly, a major benefit to doing lectures like this is that it helps form a parasocial interaction. This is a term that's used in media studies to describe how we, after viewing people or listening to them on the radio, how we begin to think that we know them or that we have a relationship with them. This is very helpful for the student experience because when they watch your lecture, they are watching just you, right? They are not sharing you in a classroom with other students. They're looking just at you. And so it feels like you're talking to them, and it makes it seem as they know you. And I think that's really valuable because when they then come to their virtual meeting or their in-person meeting, they are more apt to be comfortable with you and to feel like they have a relationship with you. So now I'd like to just briefly discuss how I create these video lectures. I record on my computer's camera. I then upload it, the raw footage into iTunes, or I'm sorry, it's called iMovie. And then I'm able to bring in my captions and my photos into the media library, drop it in, and choose whether I'm going to share my screen or put up a picture-in-picture caption. So this is great if you already have slides, but bullet points, and you want to screenshot it. You can bring it in, and you can even have it take over the entire screen, just as you would in a lecture. So there's so much flexibility that you have when creating these types of lectures. I then upload the finished link to YouTube. I turn off the comments. I also turn off seeing who likes or dislikes the video. I don't want to know. And then I make it unlisted so that you can only see it if a student has the link. I load the link to Blackboard, and it is there for the rest of the semester, and students can reference the material as needed. Does this take a lot of time? Yeah, it does. Most of my lectures are around 40 minutes, and I can have as many as 15 in a semester. And they take me about 3 hours from beginning to end to create. So I'll be honest, it's an effort, but I feel it is worth it because of the benefits that it provides to students. So in conclusion, please do not hesitate to contact me here at Elmhurst. This is my email address right here. If you would like to reach out to me and ask any questions about what it's like to be hearing impaired in the classroom, or if you would like to just problem solve, if you're trying to reach a student and you would like to problem solve, please do not hesitate to connect with me. That concludes our lecture for today.